Boy, does Sylvester Stallone want to be a 20-year-old again. Hey everyone, it's Anthony here at Talk and Review, and today we are discussing Rambo: Last Blood. Let's go! So the review today is going to be a little bit different than what we've done previously. Both myself and Nikki are going to be reviewing this together today. We both went and saw it on release day. We were quite excited to go watch it, so we were quite eager to get both of our points across in the review. So we're going to lay the review out in a very, very basic manner. Things that we liked, things that we didn't like, and then an overall, would we not recommend it? Before I go into the things that we liked, just a little bit of a background of the story. We find John Rambo on a ranch in America, living out the rest of his days with a family, trying to live a quiet life, and basically trying to be as far away from what his original or past life was all about. The young teen of the family goes missing, and he has to ditch the quiet life and get back into the mayhem. That's essentially it. So things that we liked.
The action scenes. So, how many people are pulling off the amount of scenes that Sylvester Stallone is doing in his 70s? It surprised me how good the action was in this film. I thought it might have toned down a little from Rambo 4, but it did not let me down at all.
So if you've seen any of the Rambo films, probably the fourth one in particular, you will know that they are extremely violent and extremely over the top in their violence, and this one is no exception to that rule. And it's actually really quite enjoyable to watch if you like that kind of thing, because not only does it fulfill some kind of cathartic release when watching it, some of the kills and some of the gore in this film are actually quite comical as well, so it's a bit of a detriment in that sense, but it's also a lot of fun to watch this violence and gore, because if we're being honest, you kind of go into these films expecting this type of violence and this type of gore, and this delivers in abundance.
So one thing that I really liked was the old music came back. So you've got that Jerry Goldsmith, Brian Tyler theme coming throughout the film, and for me that has a nostalgic feeling and takes you back to the older films. There was a good spin on some of the themes of the songs from the previous films, but I'd still say my favourite soundtrack from any of the 5 films would be Part 4. The battle at Diego, I think it's called, in Part 4, where Stallone stood there looking at the battle and the cameras behind him, is absolutely awesome.
Another thing that I really quite loved about this movie is that part of it takes place in these underground tunnels. Now, I won't go into a lot of detail about it for spoiler reasons, but a lot of traps are laid for people to fall into to induce grotesque kills. And when I was watching it, I couldn't help but feel like it felt like a adult or an R-rated version of Home Alone, and I just couldn't get that image out of my head of Kevin McAllister as John Rambo setting up all these traps for the robbers or the bad guys to fall into to meet their demise. I just thought it was really quite funny, really. So let's move into things that we did not like.
For me, this didn't feel like a Rambo film, and I felt like it was a generic film that could have had any title on top and could have been a solo film for Sylvester Stallone to cause his carnage rather than have the name Rambo. A number of factors for me why I feel it doesn't have that Rambo feel is one, which is, it seems ridiculous, but it's important to me to feel that character, was his hair. I wanted that long Rambo hair, and watching Stallone without that look took me out of the film, and I felt like I was watching Stallone or Rocky that's in Rambo. I need that character look to get that feeling that, yeah, I'm watching Rambo. And I also felt that the story was had a lot of very stereotypes to it. Rambo 4, the last one, had a very important message in terms of Burma and all the catastrophes that's happening over there. Whereas I felt that this one, it didn't feel as important, and I don't feel like he invested that much time into what actually happens in Mexico. And yeah, it just felt like a different environment for Rambo, and I don't know, it just didn't match the tone of what Rambo is and what he's about.
Okay, so for me, there's quite a lot that I didn't like about this movie. I didn't like the movie in itself, really. I didn't think it was a very good movie at all. But one of the main issues that I had with the movie is it doesn't give you any time to flesh out any of the new characters in the film. You're very aware of John Rambo. You've been aware of him from First Blood all the way up until now, so you're aware of this character, you know what he's been through, you know the type of character he is. However, his motivations in this film are brought on by someone else. Now, you don't get enough time to understand this character at all. It gives you probably about 20 minutes of build up of understanding why this character does what they do to allow things to progress further. But that's pretty much it. So this film is very short. It's a very, very short film, and I think that it is to its detriment because it doesn't give you enough time to flesh out these characters. I just think the movie focused more on the violent side of things. How can we get this more violent? How can we get it more gory? Than actually spending time developing any character so you actually feel something for someone when something happens. You don't feel anything for anyone in this movie, not even Rambo. You don't feel anything for him, and that's possibly down to the poor acting in it as well. But yeah, you just don't get any time to really get invested in any of these characters at all.
It's not a spoiler, but during the film, he's sort of having his PTSD attack, and he's getting all these flashbacks of what's happening to him previously, so all the torture and stuff like that. It only touched on it once in the film, and I feel that it should have capitalized on that, because I think that's a really good essence to bring in his vulnerability. The acting in this film was very hit and miss. I felt like the villain didn't feel like he was a horrible guy, and I felt like his henchman, or the one just below him, was the he felt more villainous and was a nasty person, and I would have loved to have seen a bit more of him rather than the main villain that we got in the film. And I think some of the dialogue in the film didn't help, and I did find at times I was trying to listen to what Stallone was saying. He sounded like he was mumbling quite a lot.
Another thing that I found really, really weird about this film is how they portrayed Mexico. Because as soon as you cross the border from America into Mexico in this movie, you enter this drug-filled gangland of abuse, violence, rape, gang culture, all the negative things you could possibly think of, and all the stereotypical Mexican gang member vibes you can think of, it is thrown at you straight away. I feel like a lot of steps have been made over a considerable amount of years to try and get away from that stereotypical nature. Now, it doesn't mean to say that there aren't violent gangs in Mexico. There are violent gangs everywhere in the world, but it's just the way that Mexico is portrayed in this movie is that as soon as you cross the border, you are at danger of being kidnapped, killed, whatever. And it doesn't portray Mexico in general as a very nice place. And I've got an issue with that, because just because there are violent gang members in Mexico doesn't automatically make this a place where as soon as you enter it, you are prone to being kidnapped or killed or whatever. And I think this movie is, someone has described it to me as that this movie is a Trump haven. And I can completely understand what they mean, because when you think about all the kind of things that he's been saying about Mexicans and their culture and everything, it feels like this movie was created by Donald Trump. And it's madness. It's really off-putting. And I've touched upon this before, but the story is super, super basic in this movie. It doesn't allow for anything to grow on you. It's basically just a man needs to find someone. He goes rogue and takes on the world. It felt like I was watching a movie from the 80s, and what I mean by that is a lot of action movies in the 80s focus on one lead character taking on all of the bad guys, and that's essentially all this movie is. There's nothing else to it. There's no heart, even though they try to make it meaningful. There's nothing else other than one man taking on all the bad guys in a very violent way, and that's your entire story. And it's just far too basic. There is an argument to say that there is a time and a place for this movie because it's very much a take your brain out popcorn kind of movie, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with those types of movies. In fact, sometimes it's just what the doctor ordered. However, when you compare this movie to the caliber of popcorn movies that are out there, this is a completely forgetful movie. Not just in the franchise of Rambo, it is very forgetful in the franchise of Rambo, but overall, this is a movie that I will absolutely forget very, very quickly, and I will not be returning to. So would we recommend this movie? I think you can probably tell by now that we really wouldn't recommend this movie. We went into this movie with great intentions. I didn't think that it was going to be an Oscar winner. I didn't think it was going to be something that was really going to be half decent. I kind of went in there expecting it to be bad. It was bad, so I wasn't disappointed in it, but it's not good. It's really not good. If you're a fan of the Rambo series, you're probably going to check it out anyway, but what I would say is don't get your hopes up. If you found anything that you liked from number 4, this doesn't have any of the qualities of number 4. I mean, personally, I wasn't a massive fan of number 4, but this doesn't have any of the qualities of number 4 at all. It doesn't feel like a Rambo film, and it's, like I said, just not a good film. So yeah, we wouldn't recommend this film.
Thank you for watching, guys. Me and Anthony appreciate you guys watching our reviews. We've got some great ones on the way. We'll have It, which Anthony's doing. We're definitely going to be watching Joker when that comes out. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. Drop us a comment down below. What did you think of Rambo? And what do you think of our thoughts on the film?
Ring the bells, ring the bells.
Go check out our movie playlist. We've got our movie reviews from 2019 and 2018.
Don't forget the